Shooters Connection offers products for competition shooters by competition shooters. With over 80 years of combined competition shooting experience, Shooters Connection is staffed by master and grandmaster shooters who live the shooting sports every day. We offer same-day shipping. Shooters Connection also sponsors over 100 of your matches every single year. So when it comes to finding everything you need to compete as a beginner or a seasoned grandmaster, Shooters Connection is the only name you need to know. Online at shootersconnectionstore.com.
What's up, people? This is the Hit Factor podcast coming at you from all over. We got our buddy Tater Tot from Maine, Mr. Jeffrey Cawthon from Oklahoma, and myself, Jeremy Reid, from the one and only real state, Texas. Basically a nation unto itself. Should be a nation unto itself.
People from Texas are bad. They're bad, dude.
No, people from Texas have actual pride in their state because it's one of the few states that's worth having pride in, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about having pride, I think, ooh, Dallas, Fort Worth, Sugarland, pride, Galveston. Now that's a place to be proud of.
Hey, they got good food down there. Just saying, there's some really good food down there.
Texas City. Oh man, the pride of Texas.
I don't think it comes off as homeland pride, though. I mean, I could be wrong. Anyway, whatever. Texans.
Kind of militant arrogance.
If I say Texans, like everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody.
I mean, you can leave the U.S. You go elsewhere in the world, and people are like, Texas?
Yeah, because they know that it's cool. Like, do they say remember the what do they say in Oklahoma? Like, we have remember the Alamo. What do they got in Oklahoma? Remember the reservations? I don't know.
No,
remember the Trail
we
of
don't have
Tears.
a remember the thing.
Remember the Osage? I mean,
right.
Yeah, I remember.
It'd be nice if somebody did. We do get remember the Maine down with Spain, War of 1898, because they blew up the USS Maine in Cuba.
Oh, so that wasn't actually even in Maine.
No, it's just named for the state. It's the naval tradition of naming ships for states.
What is other than lobsters, what is the state of Maine most notable for?
Blueberries, moose, lots and lots of forest, and then we have 2 naval shipyards. So we do heavy industry. We used to do machine guns, like Saco, Maine is where the M60 was made. We got some other heavy industry in the southern part of the state. Whitney from Pratt & Whitney is from Maine, and so one of their early factories is here.
I mean, so you at least have some sort of state pride. Like, you rattled off several things, and I asked Jeff, and he's like,
Well, I mean, a lot of that is that I'm just not very well educated on my state because I was homeschooled. So, yeah, they're just.
So are we making fun of homeschool people now?
I mean, you can. It's fine. It's nothing new.
All right. We got all sorts of stuff on tap for tonight. We're going to dig into Potato's mind a little bit and see what's there or not there, what's missing. We polygraphs. We'll briefly discuss that a little bit. And
we're going to give Jeremy a polygraph, in fact, to get to the truth of what he's thinking about at major matches.
If we could actually do a polygraph test on the podcast, I think that would be fantastic. It's probably really expensive, but it would be kind of fascinating I don't know what questions we would ask. I know one question I would specifically ask Jeff that I don't want to tell him right now because I don't want to, in case this ever happens, but I have questions I want to ask.
I would ask you both. Do you really think, Jeremy, deep down, do you think you're a better shooter than Jeff? And I would ask Jeff the same thing.
Yeah,
that's like diving into our internal psychology more than what is a truth telling and what is a lie. It's like diving into our internal psychology.
I mean, I would tell you that Jeremy is a better shooter than I am. I know he thinks.
But you don't believe that.
he does believe that because he knows I
Yeah.
am a better shooter, but he does better in matches.
Yeah, I believe I can win, but I know that like shooting wise, Jeremy is capable of more than I am.
I agree with that. I'll
Yeah.
I'll take that polygraph test.
So you have not been leaking on the podcast, is what you're saying?
No, we haven't leaked anything. Anything has not been leaked. Also, most importantly, Jeff and I have seen a final cut of the video. It still has some audio editing to be polished up and finished, but
Mm-hmm.
our video from Area 3 with the race and all the gloriousness of old people,
yeah.
old white guys running, and then the match is coming out soon. It ended up longer than we thought because it just needed more time. I think it's like 40 minutes, around 40 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 40 minutes.
It's I don't know if everybody else is going to enjoy it as much as Jeff and I did, but I was just smiling and laughing through almost all of it.
Yeah.
So that was great.
And so lots of people have reviewed it for us, and almost all of them say, I mean, it could be shorter, but I don't know what you would take out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just good. It's good. There's a lot of good content, and I have spoken with our editor and video guy, Ian and Cliff, and I actually hope to get them on pretty soon to kind of give talk about it a little bit, because this was really for both of them their first experience with shooting and people in this space. So I think it would be pretty interesting to have them on and talk about, especially Cliff. I mean,
Yes.
no joke, like we had no idea who Cliff was. And it was like a week before this thing started. And he was like, yeah, sure, what the hell? I'll go to Nebraska with a bunch of weird dudes and video. So anyway, I would love for him to come on here and kind of give his thoughts on how that all progressed, and then how the weekend went, and what he came away from it with. And then Ian, our editor, he came in not having gone on the trip, and he came in with 15 hours of footage and put together this story, which is freaking incredible. So I would really like to get him on to talk about kind of what that was like for him, just rolling through all that, trying to figure out the story, like what happened, So I think it would be really good if we get both of them on there. They're pretty good dudes. So
yeah, and the fact that Ian, I mean, yeah, Cliff has to come on. Cliff was awesome, and yeah, that could have been just absolute disaster on both ends. But Ian to really not be there, not have anything other than just 15 hours of footage, and to come up with the story that he did, that told the story of that trip as well as he did, is actually really, really impressive.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he did a great job. Obviously, there's going to be stuff that we want to do better and do different on the next stuff, but I'm really excited about how this one's come out, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and definitely share it with anybody that you think would be remotely interested. I mean, I think it's a great video for promoting kind of what the sport is, but also it's just super entertaining because Jeremy and I have made absolute fools of ourselves running a race. God, it's so good, especially Jeremy.
It's also going to be a window for a lot of folks who have listened to you guys for a long time to sort of to see that dynamic play out at a match, in a race, at an Airbnb, etc., in the car, right? Like it'll feel familiar, I think, to a lot of people who see it. And interesting. And
hopefully, like, honestly, kind of what I hope it does, it makes people, like, if they're just shooting local matches or they haven't shot some majors or whatever, or they're thinking, man, maybe I don't want to shoot next year or whatever is going on. Like, oh no, I want to go to Grand Island, Nebraska to shoot a match, even though, like, I don't care about Grand Island, but like this looked fun. That was fun. I want to go do that. I want to go have that experience. So hopefully that'll that'll be part of it too. Because
And if you have been in the shooting space, you'll see a lot of familiar faces in the video from the match. So it'll be cool. There's a little something in it for everybody, I think, honestly.
yeah, it's gonna be great. Okay, polygraphs. Why are we talking about polygraphs? If you guys don't know, it came out in the most recent minutes from the board that I don't know who was it that passed the motion originally. Was it? Oh, it was Bruce 6, wasn't it? Wasn't it Area 6?
Bruce Wells proposed the motion.
So yeah,
Area 4 seconded it.
Yes. So Bruce Bruce Wells of Area 6, who is leaving the board, December 31st is his last day as a board member. He set a motion for. They want to find who is leaking board documents, board communication, whatever. They want to find who's leaking it. And so Bruce submitted a motion that they want everybody on the board to submit to a polygraph test by the end of the year. And if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me. Along with that was then they will remove said persons from office using 7.7 of the bylaws, which doesn't actually require a polygraph
anyone
test.
who refuses to take it is considered to have removed themselves.
Oh, is that what it said?
It's then you'll be up for removal. It's like refusing to, I don't know, take a breathalyzer. It's prima facie you're admitting guilt. Did either of you guys grow up watching any spy movies? Because wouldn't it be so much cooler if the board of directors hired a mole hunter instead of this whole polygraph thing, right?
Yes.
Like somebody to infiltrate your organization, like who could do like counter espionage,
right?
Like you could run a whole campaign, right? Like maybe we'll find out that Ben Barry, the incoming Area 6 director, this is a long term. He is the mole hunter.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And they set up that whole backstory about being really interested in the practical shooting sports just so that we would all buy. This is long-term thinking.
Ben now that Ben is elected, he's made some comments on the Discord that makes me think he's starting to think like a BOC a little bit. Maybe he is a mole.
Did he say something mean about single stack?
No, he didn't say anything mean about single stack. If he said something mean about single stack, we'd know he's BOC. Like we would just 100% know he's a mole. We got to get him out. Luckily,
because if there's one thing old fuds hate, it's single stack.
That's right. 100%. Especially if you put a rail in it and shoot 9mm with it. Okay, so the polygraph. So they're spending money. I don't know. I assume this is fairly expensive because they are either going to fly a person to all these different all the different board members' homes, and I assume they did not say area directors; they said board members. So
has anybody looked this up? Like what is the actual cost of a polygraph? Anybody looked that
up? I don't know what it costs. Well, who knows what kind of backwoods cousin they're going to use to administer this polygraph? I assume there's probably like home polygraph kits that you can buy, and I assume there's professional services that cost a lot of money.
Right, it's like one of those home lab kits, like Let's Get Checked, where you're doing blood work. It's like a ship to your house polygraph.
Every well or whatever, and then you mail in your polygraph results and somebody interprets it.
Right. Yes. Because I imagine it's going to be tough to like contract your local law enforcement. I wouldn't think they do polygraphs too often, so I don't even know who you would contact to do this sort of thing. The fascinating thing that has come out about this is that in Washington, where they're officed at, and Delaware, where they're it's incorporated at, it's not legal to put your board members under a polygraph test, is my understanding, is what I've read and seen.
Really?
So they're not even like I'm not sure if it's even legal for them to use a polygraph in any sort of way to remove somebody. So that's fascinating. I guess Bruce 6, by him submitting this, it's not due until the end of the year, and it would be voted on after that. So he won't actually even be able to vote on removing anybody or anything like
Nor
that.
will he have to take the polygraph, since he will not be in office at the deadline.
Correct.
So he neither has to take the polygraph, nor is in a position to vote on anyone who didn't. But he just wanted to sort of leave that particular steamer and run away.
A party gift.
That's all laughable. The
like
good thing is,
carts.
Yeah, the good thing is that we have lots of money. So like, there's lots of spare money. They're bringing in tons of money, so we don't really have to worry about the cost of it, like being harmful.
Yeah, when we get another 500 life members next year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like this could cost anywhere from $200 to $2,000 per test. And that's like just for the test. That's probably not for like flying somebody in or having somebody go somewhere, right? That's the cost of the test. That's kind of a big window.
Let's put a number right in the middle, and we'll say it'll cost somewhere between 10 and 20 grand.
Yes. And what do we get for that 10 to 20 grand is we get results that are not admissible in any sort of court system in America. They are known to be completely unreliable and not truthful. And depending on who's writing the questions, they're going to have to hire somebody to be able to like form questions that would actually give you responses that are understandable. My hope is that the people who wrote the questions for the surveys that we get are the same people who write the questions for the polygraph test. That is my hope, because then it will be even more laughable. And so, yeah, that'll be great.
If there was some way to get the transcripts, they would all be worth it.
Yes. I would actually support, from an entertainment standpoint, I would support the expenditure if we get the transcript of these polygraph tests.
Dude, that was such a weird thing to see. That like it felt like it was out of the blue. We're just like, what? A polygraph? What?
I think didn't Bruce 6, didn't he kind of allude to like he had stuff up his sleeves? Like, didn't he have a comment to Ben Berry or something? Like he had kind of something he was gonna, like he was kind of gonna go out with something. I feel like I saw a comment out there that he wasn't gonna just go quietly into the wind, so to speak. And like, maybe this is his parting shot that he's gonna go after him.
They're gonna learn. These kids gonna learn. So
the big question is, have the leaks been damaging to the org? The information that we've seen, because basically the information, Derek has gotten the information, right, on Practical Shooting Insights. He's gotten it, and he's posted on his social media. He's got, I don't know, 30, 40,000 followers or something like that. So the question is, has that information been damaging to the org, or has it simply been damaging to the board members?
Yeah, I feel like this is such a, I don't know, subjective question. It's like, is it damaging? Well, it damaged this thing that damaged this person who's a part of the org, so yes. So I don't know how they're going to quantify like damage to the org. Potato, do you have any thoughts on like how they would say indefinite, like this damaged the org, here's the number, here's how it was damaged? Or is this all like they can pretty much say anything was damaging to the org? Like, we are 100% damaging to the org. Guarantee it.
Well, this is anytime you're making a claim about something that didn't happen, you can sort of claim whatever you want, you know? We would have had 50,000 new members if it wasn't for those, dastardly kids publishing our speech on the internet.
Right.
repeating the things that we said to other people so that they could hear what we said. Right? I mean,
Yeah, what if,
maybe we would have. I don't know. Like, how do you know, there's no way to disprove
yeah,
that claim.
what if, what if it backfires somehow, right? So what if they come forward and they figure out who leaked these emails? They're like, look, this person damaged the org.
Or they don't
Hold on.
figure out who leaked these emails. They figure
But
out
what if-
that other people leaked other things, and they don't have any conclusive evidence about the emails. So they just have a bunch of evidence. I'm just pulling this out of a hat, please. I don't mean anything to this. So let's say the Area 2 director told his buddies a bunch of things that were confidential board information, and that comes out through the polygraphs, although they never get sort of any strong determination on who leaked the emails that they're upset about.
Oh, yeah.
Would that person be subject to removal under 7.7?
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like, what if they're like trying to figure out who leaked these emails, but in turn figure out that the internal emails themselves were the most damaging thing to the org, kind of deal? What if it's able to be flipped around like that?
Then it'll just get washed under the bridge, and we just lost $20,000. That's what will happen. I would just say to the board, like, please quit wasting our money. Like, this is absolute absurd. The problem is that the stuff that's been leaked has been things that they've said. So rather than not saying stuff that pisses everybody off, maybe worry about, hey, let's just lead the org in a positive and a good way, like a way that people want it to be done, not in a stupid manner. And then all of this is a non-issue. Like, why don't you want the transparency? If you're in a leadership position, you should want the transparency. For, like, they don't own this. It's not their own private business. Like, I understand, like, I don't want to give out all of what I'm doing privately in my personal business. Yeah, I'm not going to give all of that out, but this isn't their business. It's not their organization. They don't own it. They have no ownership stake in it. So let's just be transparent. Hey, here's what we're doing with the org, and let's just throw all that out there and quit wasting our money.
There you go.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have polygraphs.
This one was an honest shock to me. Like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like polygraphs are so known to be so untrustworthy. Like, it's like they're not reliable.
You're thinking too hard, Jeremy.
Yeah, I guess so. But I didn't feel like I was thinking hard to come to that conclusion. That's just a known conclusion that everybody knows is true.
Right. So the other angle is that it's just a strategy to bring out the person, right? Like, they're not actually going to follow through with polygraph. They're just threatening polygraph so that certain things will become apparent and it'll be obvious. Okay, yes, well, this person is trying to get away from everything, so that's the mole.
You know, in a couple different points in my life, I was just in harmless things. I was involved in things where some authority figure said, we know who is involved, come forward and the consequences will be much lighter. And I never ever came forward and they never ever caught me.
I'm imagining a 16-year-old potato that's got a few too many squirrels in the back of his truck.
Something like that, yeah. And I remember once then somebody who did come forward, felt pretty upset about it. And they spoke to that authority figure and they said, well, Saul was also involved. And that authority figure turned to that kid and said, he'll just have to live with his conscience. They didn't like snitches either.
And your conscience is just fine today, I assume.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
Lost zero sleep over any of it.
Yeah.
So I can see that also going down. If this is a big ploy to sort of ferret out the miscreants, that it may not, in fact, apply the pressure that whoever introduced it is hoping.
Yeah. Also, it looks like our new Area 8 director is in the mold of all the rest of the BOCs, so we missed another chance there. We could be at a majority in board votes if we had not Area 4, I feel so bad that our area let the rest of the sport down that we elected Mel. But we could have had 5.
We could have had a lawyer who is also a meme lord.
Yes.
Right? Like 2 things that the BOD desperately needs. Internet literacy and legal input.
Yes.
Right? Like, who better to be on the board at this exact time than someone who knows how to win an argument on the internet and knows the law? Like, these are 2 of their biggest deficits.
Instead we have
a guy who likes to shoot.
Yeah, and somebody says, somebody says polygraphs. Yes, let's take polygraphs. We love that. That's who we have for our Area 4 director. He's a goober and should go away, but we've got 2 more.
Did he get RO? Did he get his RO certification?
He did.
Yeah, that got kind of fast tracked some way somehow. I'd be surprised if he ever actually took the class, but yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep,
all right.
He did. So that's polygraphs. That's kind of what's going on. It's it's humorous. You might as well stick around just to see what happens with it. So, Potato. We had this conversation on the Discord today. We were talking about a particular competitor who is a very good shooter. He shoots well. I shot with him at Nationals several years ago in Florida. I didn't know who the guy was. And like first couple of stages, he does his make ready and you're like, okay, maybe he's just really nervous. Like, so he's doing a lot of draws, a lot of draws and still a lot more draws. And it's like, okay, maybe he's just nervous. And then no, day 3, he's still doing that to the point that literally every RO like starts to say, are you ready? Stand by. And like and he like literally every single one he calls off because his make ready is literally just a dry fire practice routine. It's absurd. And so he shoots locally with some of the guys that are on the Discord. And I was saying, people saying, yeah, they want to shoot with this guy because he's really good. And I was like, I would do everything I could to not squad with that guy because I don't want to sit there and wait through that make ready routine. So this isn't really about long make ready routines. It was Potato then chimed in. He said, well, he's probably like me.
Not probably. I said he could be.
Or he could. Yeah, that's true. Let's not put this on him. That's true. We don't want to put this curse on him. But Potato said, well, if he's like me, he's incapable of visualizing stages. And so so he can't do that until he gets to the actual line.
Yeah.
And I said, Potato, I think you're a little bit maybe full of crap.
It's happened before. I've been wrong before.
Okay, so this is, and the way this has been framed, when people ask me the question is, if I tell you to think of an apple, what do you think about? Like, do you see something in your head? Like, what do you think about?
The abstract concept of apples.
Right. Like what?
So here, I'll do one for both of you guys, all right? So I want you to imagine a young woman, let's say early 20s. She's a brunette, and she's walking out of the grocery store, and she has a necklace on, and it's a beaded necklace, all right?
Yeah.
What color are the beads?
Oh, they were like pearls for sure.
What color were the beads, Jeremy?
I didn't really. I was waiting for you to assign a color to the beads.
All right. Well, so just imagine she's walking out of the grocery store, young woman, brunette. She's got a couple of grocery bags. She's wearing a necklace. It's a beaded necklace. Can you see the beads? Or do you need more description to see them? Okay. What color are they?
Well, I mean, if you want me to assign a color, I could then add that layer of it.
You didn't automatically mention a color? So what did you see when I said beaded necklace?
Yeah.
Well, it was.
Jeff just saw pearls, and so it's like his brain is like, "Oh, cool, pearls. They're like kind of white, milky white," and that's what he saw. What did you see for beaded necklace?
Well, it never solidified. It was like, okay,
so you didn't really see anything.
I mean, no, I saw it like there was but it never is like okay. At one point they're orange, one point they're blue, one point there's silver.
So were you seeing like an outline sketch? Like there's no color to any of the scene yet?
Just lots of different ones because I was waiting for him to.
Oh, so you're cycling through different things.
Yeah.
But so Jeff just picked like a thing. His brain said picked a thing, and he's like, cool, pearls.
Yeah.
And then he saw a pearl necklace. And you just kept possibilities open. And so, like, if you thought for a moment, maybe they were green, maybe they were orange, maybe they were like big, thick, chunky beads, maybe they were like, there was a little like friendship necklace. Okay. So this is my, I'm the one giving you the guided imagery, and I see none of that stuff. Like, not even a little bit. Even now talking about it, see none of it.
So, okay, can you draw an apple on a piece of paper?
Yes. Very poorly, but I can.
How?
So I don't compare it to a mental image of an apple. My hands just know roughly the relative location of the contour lines of an apple.
So you're just like, an apple's kind of curved, so you draw a curved line and then another
you make a circle. I know apples are circular, right? I know like some of them are kind of, and often I'll use my hands, and people shot masters with me see me doing this because I describe stages, and I remember stages really well. Like memory stages don't trip me up, but I make all the spatial relationships with my hands. Like, you're going to come in here about 30 degrees off on the left. You're going to see, a stacked target just past that, or two pieces of steel, and sort of use my hands to make it a little bit more real.
So what methods do you use for like a memorization?
So are you, I mostly don't. I just remember things.
That doesn't make any sense.
And honestly, this is, without going too far into it, there's a whole thing, it's called aphantasia or hypophantasia. I'm probably not aphantasic. I'm not entirely incapable of imagining anything visual, but it takes so much effort. Like if I wanted to see like a dull orange ball, right? Like the sun at sunset, and I really wanted to like see that, I'm basically going to sit here sweating, trying to make my brain see that. So to memorize things, I don't. I just repeat a sequence. So if it's, I don't know, if it's directions, like if I'm driving to a place, it's third left, go past the stoplight, there's a stop sign on the right, make a right, second blue house on the left, go past that, and then it's the fourth business on the right. So I just make a sequence, but I don't think about what it looks like to pull up in front of that house and like see that house as a way of knowing I'm there.
Interesting.
But how do you know what a stop sign looks like?
Because I know what its properties are. I just can't imagine. It's not that I can't see things. It's that I can't imagine them in a visual register.
But you can't remember what they look like.
I know what they look like. I can't see them, but I know what they look like. So if I told you something with nothing visual associated to it, can you remember it?
Give me an example.
9 + 6.
Okay.
How do you know that's 15? You knew it, like right away. As soon as I said 9 + 6, you knew it was 15, right?
That's rote memorization, but I can do like the visualization in my head too.
Yeah, but do you need to visualize for math?
Well, not for simple addition.
How about you, Jeff?
Jeff can't do math.
Jeff
I had to do that math, honestly.
You're like, all right, so 9, 5, 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
y'all
fair.
were like,
That's fair.
yeah, y'all were like down the road a ways before I had the answer.
No, that's fine. I mean, I don't know. I didn't realize this was a thing. I thought everybody's brain worked like this. I should have figured it out a little bit earlier in my life a couple times. Like when I was a teenager, people were doing guided imagery. And I thought, this is so strange. You just sit here and listen to this person like describe a story. Like, what's the point of that? Or the classic one, like anyone who sort of their mind works like this, counting sheep, right? Why would that make you tired? sheep are just a unit. 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep, 4 sheep, 5 sheep. I didn't realize that someone like thinks of like big fluffy white sheep jumping over a fence and that somehow that's relaxing. Never occurred to me. I do think it's why I'm really good at remembering things, because my brain isn't clouded with all the things people imagine when they hear information.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So it makes it very simple. Like if it's facts, dates, times.
So when I
tend to recall it pretty well.
When I was on here the other day describing how sometimes if I can't go to sleep, I'll visualize my morning. Like, does that make any sense to you? Like to do stuff like that?
No, I mean, that's literally impossible. And it's not that I haven't tried. Like, I've tried to visualize more than most people visualize all of the time. I remember, like for basketball, right? So people would say, oh, you visualize a free throw, right? So you sort of put yourself in the mindset of what a free throw is and sort of where the ball comes off your hand and sort of like what it looks like tracing its arc through the air. And then like a really clean entry into the basket and like, perfect swish. Right? So you visualize that. I'd sit there like abstract concept, basketball, right? Like it's just, yeah. So that's why normally when I talk about shooting, I don't use visualize, I say mental rehearsal, because I do a bunch of things to try and create like a subconscious track. But he's got to talk to his buddy Chris. But it's not visual. So when people talk about seeing like a first person movie as their visualization, like they're navigating the stage and it's like they're playing a video game. Do you see that, Jeremy, in your visualization?
Yeah. I mean, I try to see it as if I would see what I would see when I'm shooting.
Right. So like first person, like you look there, you see this target, you look to this, sort of break on the fault line, you run over there. Yeah. And you actually see it. Do you have to close your eyes to see it, or can you just see it thinking about it?
I can kind of see it. It's harder, right? Like it's harder. The more distractions there are, the less clear the picture is, right? Because you're not actually seeing the stuff, but you see it somewhat. So yeah, like the less clear the picture gets, less clear the more distractions there are. So closing your eyes kind of takes out whatever your visual distractions are there. But yeah, I see it like first person.
So if I said, hey, what color is your son's bedroom?
That's a good question, because I painted it whenever I built the house. I'm trying to remember if it's like this light green color or if it's a gray color.
Exactly. So you're not like a hyper visualizer, right? So there's people out there where the first thing they're going to do is they're going to mentally go back to their son's room the last time they were in there, and they're going to sort of mentally look. Right. Instead, you're trying to remember what you painted it. So you're trying to use other information, and then you'll populate that image in your head once you be like, oh yeah, I bought the light green paint at Lowe's.
Yeah, so it's called photographic memory, right? Like it's photographic memory, right? Like there are people that they can just simply remember. They see their whole life basically in pictures, and they can remember any sort of picture they've ever seen. Anything they've looked like, they simply remember that. So I'm curious on your visualization.
So it's kind of a spectrum. Then from people like that over to like my side of things where we don't really see anything in our imagination. And most people are somewhere in between those. And correct. People like on the extreme ends, yeah. But it's not sort of an on-off switch. I bet if we asked that to Jeff, I bet he actually like just goes to his kid's room and like in his head and then looks at the wall in his head and then comes back and tells us the color.
Yeah.
Because that's...
Yeah.
I don't know that, but I bet Jeff does that.
That he very well could. So in your visualizations, because part of my visualizations aren't necessarily always, it's not always visual. It's like, what does it feel like, right? Like, so like first stage of nationals this year for me was the standard stage. The reload was almost the most important part of that stage as far as getting points. And so there was a part of my visualization was feeling what a perfect reload felt like. And I actually was doing that while I was shooting, like while I was grabbing that mag to do the mag change, I was remembering what this feels like for this to go in perfectly into the gun. So do you visualize from a feeling standpoint? Can you do it from that? Like you just know what it feels like to draw the gun well, to recoil perfectly in your hands? Anything like that?
I think so. I mean, and I think some people can't. Some people have like other sort of sense blindness, but I can imagine a smell and I can imagine like a physical sensation. I can hear sounds that aren't there, right? Like I can hear a song in my head.
Oh,
and hear what it actually sounds like.
I went a different direction when you said you could hear things that aren't real. I went a different direction with that.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about, I love music, so I listen to a lot of music. But yeah, so I think that's why I like to say mental rehearsal too, because it's not just visual. Even for people who are really visually guided, like the feel of a perfect grip and sort of how your hand in contact with the trigger guard, or sort of the way the gun behaves in recoil, or what it feels like to sort of hit a position with your body stopped perfectly, like your sort of proprioception, like your body in space. It's just nailed that entry. When I'm planning a stage, I try and pull up as many of those things as I can, so I have detail in my mental rehearsal. Otherwise, I end up with these mental rehearsals that are grocery lists. It's like, go here, shoot that, go there, shoot that, go here, shoot that. And it's not very real. But I don't do the first person movie, like where you're just sort of behind, watching the stage unspool through your own eyes. And it's, many people have said, well, you just got to try harder. It's like, man, I've tried a lot. Right? Like I've spent many hours of my life seeing nothing, while trying really hard to see things. But
so you brought up music before Jeff gets there, because I want to talk. Imagine that. So you brought up music. See, this is really similar to music. This is why I don't I do somewhat still am in the okay, I think you need to try harder. Because there's people that have perfect pitch, right? If anybody doesn't know what perfect pitch means, there are people that know, like, there's an A, they can hum an A with zero reference to any sort of pitch. They can hum an A and they can hum it perfectly in tune, exactly where it's at. They can also just you can just play a random note on a piano. They can tell you exactly what that note is without any sort of reference, and they can tell you how flat or how sharp it is, how out of tune it is, just simply by hearing it. They have what that's called perfect pitch. So there are people that are simply born with that, and that's it's just an innate ability that they have. There are also people who they play piano so much that they develop perfect pitch. And there are people who are quote unquote tone deaf when they start, but you can hum them a note or play them a note, da, da, and they can, okay, which one was higher and which one was lower. If they absolutely cannot say which one was higher and which one was lower, then they might actually be tone deaf. But I've never met somebody who can't. You can't give them an extreme high and low, and they can't say this is lower, this one's higher. People can recognize that. And so then at that point, it's okay. Now you just have to learn to do that in a more refined manner. But maybe Potato is the guy, visually speaking, that if you you say something really low and you say something really high, and he has no idea what the difference is. Please turn that into, please don't turn that into a short or something like that later. But so I'm still very skeptical of Potato right now.
So and a couple of good shooters are basically said, "Well, just try harder. You're just not doing enough." And I will say one of the things for a long time that I did best at shooting were really simple stages. Now you might say, "Well, everyone does simple stages good," but I actually did simple stages better than lots of people because I could sequence events very, very clearly because there's so many fewer of them. And so I wouldn't have a problem sort of executing under pressure, like short courses were, sort of classifier type skills, because you don't really need to visualize. You can actually sort of physically dry fire your way through that enough times that it feels subconscious. Versus if you have a field course with 7 different positions and you're sort of accelerating across space, you can't, you get 1 walkthrough, maybe 2, you can't make that normal. And so I used to go and shoot a field course and I would consciously navigate my way through that stuff. Like the shooting might be automatic, but all of the rest of it, I'm kind of having to do it with eyes open, looking, finding things. And that's really slow.
It now makes a lot more sense.
And that's like one of the only places where I felt like I had a deficit. It's like, oh, if I could visualize this, then I would have already run the stage 40 times in my head. So when I go to run it, I'm expecting to see that next target. I'm not looking for it.
Yeah. It makes sense why drills are such a terrible idea for you in practice.
Yes, I always need more practice doing novel execution.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Drills are worthless for you. Almost. Jeff, what were you going to say? Because I still have another question for Potato.
I mean, I can see there being like pretty big pros and cons to your condition. But honestly, you're not the first person I've met that has a brain this way. I've had discussions with people around here that have asked me, like, they seem dumbfounded that if they tell me to visualize an apple, that I can like visualize an apple and I can like spin it around and I can look at it in my head. And they're like, blows their mind. They're like, I can't see anything in my head.
And I say, all right, now slice the apple and you see the core and like how many seeds are there? Can you see the seeds?
Right. Yeah. So I create all those images.
You're there.
Yeah, I can. But so like one of the negative things for me this way, and I think this is like thinking that way in combination with maybe some ADHD tendencies, is like earlier when you told me to add 9 and 5, right? Is that what you
6.
said?
It was 9 and 6.
Okay.
9 and 5 would not get you to 15.
9. You told me to add 9 and 6. My brain will, especially if you had put me on the spot, like if you had said, Jeff, what is this answer? Like my brain would have taken 10 times as long for me to put those two numbers together, because I would have just visualized 9, 6, 9, 6, 9, 6, and it would take me forever to put them together.
See, this is when you walked away because you had to take that phone call. My suspicion is that you are hypervisual, and that it's very, very easy for you to sort of get lost in what you're seeing in response to the stimuli. So you just go off into your own world and see stuff. Like somebody says something, you think about it, and then you imagine it, and then you sort of go off into Jeff land with whatever it was you've imagined.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think I'm a good listener. You wouldn't know it from the podcast, but I think I'm a good listener in real life, in part because I'm not distracted by anything anyone says.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
Like whatever you say, that's what I hear. I don't go off to my association about what you said.
Right. And it kind of makes sense why you can soak up information, because your brain doesn't get caught up in like kind of visualizing everything that people say. Like, dude, my brain just paints these images and pictures of everything that's said to me. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's so different.
I remember my mom saying, this is 20 years ago, but I was talking to my mom on the phone. She's like describing something, and then it came out that when she's talking to people on the phone, she sees them. Like she's using the phone and she sees the person she's talking to. And for me, a phone is just like this disembodied voice from nowhere. Like it never even occurs to me to think about like seeing the person I'm talking to. It's just sort of pure voice and thought.
Is your German Shepherd trying to dig a hole in the floor?
He is. He's trying to find a nice comfortable spot to lay down. He just found it.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought was happening.
What were you visualizing, Jeremy?
Exactly that. I have a German Shepherd. I knew what was happening just then. Jeff, what's 82 plus 27?
I'm not even gonna try, dude. I'm not gonna try.
Your brain didn't just immediately go 109.
No.
Yeah,
Not
and
at
so
all.
and again, that's not like a skill. That's not something I developed. Like from the moment I learned math, like my brain just produces that. And I was saying this on the Discord, and it's true. People are like, "Oh, so you're not like a spatial rotator?" I'm like, no, I'm really, really spatially oriented. Like if you need to move houses to like the third floor somewhere, and there's a narrow attic stairway, I'm the guy you want because I will help you orient all of your furniture to get it up, like with a minimal amount of cursing and digging up the wall. But I don't do that by imagining it. I just look at it, and then I look at the space, and I'm like, it fits this way. And I'm not always right, but I'm usually right.
So,
And I think
hold
someone
on.
else would like sit there and twist it in their head until they could like figure out how to orient the sofa to get it up the stairway.
Oh yeah, dude. I would just close my eyes. I just see better with my eyes closed. So is
And I
this?
think Jeremy falls somewhere between us, honestly. Because I do think this is a spectrum. I'm sorry, Jeremy. But
I mean, I can add 9 plus 6 together. I can do that. So yes, I'm not where Jeff's at that point.
You don't just see a glowing 9, 6,
Right.
9,
No.
6. Ooh, strawberries.
Did you participate in any sort of art as a kid?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Did you fail all those classes?
No, there's people who are famous visual artists who don't see things in their... Like they have a concept and then they express that concept with their bodies by creating things, but they don't see that concept before they create.
I could actually see that, like, you being a pretty good artist with that. Because, like, you're just going off of, like, you make a stroke, and then you kind of go from there, and you just keep building on what's in front of you, rather than visualizing what you're trying to make.
And I can remember things I've seen, but I can't see them. So, like a couple of minutes ago, I bent the computer so you could see my dog on the floor.
Yeah.
Right? If you had bent your computer so I could see your dog on the floor, Jeremy, I would remember that I'd seen it. I'd probably remember its color. I could give you all of that information. But I wouldn't get that information by remembering what it looked like. It would just be something I know. And if I didn't know it, I just don't know it. I'd have no way to get it. If Jeff didn't know it, he would try and look at it again in his head until he came up with the answer. It might be, but it might not be the correct answer. It would just be what his head sees. Right?
Right. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Like if I said, no, I don't know. And so I used to think this was a real problem for shooting. It's not. Like, I'm not asking for extra walkthroughs. I don't need special accommodations to get by on my mental deficit. But I have met a few other people who shoot, and when people emphasize the sort of visualization, like the thing you need to do to make a stage plan run automatically is you need to sort of watch it like a first-person film over and over again until you can't make a mistake. It's like, yeah, we don't do that. And it still works out. So maybe that's just one way. That may not be the only way.
So to bring this all back together, don't
You still don't believe me.
don't have a dry fire session, workout session during your make ready. This is too long. Don't be like that. You know, other thing I thought of while we're having this conversation, which is I think kind of interesting, is like there are people that like they go to his classes with instructors and they become like ardent students of that, and they think I have to follow this, and this is the instructor that has things right. And man, that instructor is teaching what they know, right? Like they're teaching what's worked for them. And it's not that you shouldn't go to classes or try to learn from instructors. There's lots of good information out there, but I do think that it's a pretty clear example tonight of just how differently people's minds work and how differently they process information and they apply information that they have, such that like just you can't just take one person how they teach, how they say how to do something, and just like that is the way that it has to be done.
Yeah. Imagine how
if
badly
I describe to you,
up if me and Potato taught a class.
Okay, Jeff, you say everything as you just said again.
I said, imagine how screwed up people would be if me and Potato tried to teach a class together. Like trying to teach people how to visualize a stage and make a stage.
We'll teach them the mental game, the Cawthon Allen mental game. So first, you're going to see nothing, just rote memorization, and then I want you to act it out with your body, and then go over and work with Jeff for a little while, and you're going to see everything. I mean, it's also when people describe what they see, they're using language, right? They're translating. It's not what they see. It's a language game that's loosely corresponds to what those words mean to them. And there's certainly like instructors where I've heard them say a thing for years, and I thought that's just wrong. Not that it's wrong, like it isn't true for them, but what those words mean, that's not what I see and that's not what I do. It's just not reality for me. And if I spend a whole lot of time trying to, which I did at one point, trying to make what they describe my reality, I'm just beating my head against the wall.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I feel like Potato, you and I actually walking stages together we would form our own like vernacular, because I noticed myself doing this as like at Area 3 and Nationals with Jeff and Brett. We were walking stages together and stuff, and they'd say like, "Do you have a plan?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm going 8, 6, 8, 2, 4." And then I would say, "But I could go 8, 8, 4, 6, but I think I'm gonna go 8, 2, 6, 8, 4." And like that would be all I would say. And I would assume that they understand what all of those 8 shots were, like what are the next 2 shots, and like they knew exactly what my stage plan was simply by the numbers that I read off to them.
Oh, that would totally work for me, because it would be the logical order of target engagements, how many shots required for the positions I see from a logical starting point to a logical ending point. Yeah. And if there was a decision, I would know based on the round count which way you were going.
Yeah. Brett and Jeff looked at me like, I don't know what kind of weird gibberish you're giving me, but that doesn't make sense.
I feel like there was a lot of stages that it makes total sense if it's like fairly straightforward. I think it was some of the bit more convoluted ones that were like, yeah, no, I'm not following on this one. And on a straightforward one, we'll just all 3 of us will walk around and be like, 668 or 886 or
Yeah.
For memory stages, I almost always try and have non-target related markers throughout the stage. So that when I'm mentally rehearsing it, I know what the sequencing is, because I'm not going to visualize seeing it, but I know, the crack in the fault line, from there, it's the first target on the left. Right, and then I'm going to transition, and it's the hardcover partial, and then it's 2 opens, and I think everyone does that, but some people do that in a visual register where they're seeing that, and then some people sort of do it my way, which is more grocery list style. Like these are the sequence of all the things that have to happen for a memory stage, so that after beep, I'm not thinking about that. Did I already engage that target? I'm just shooting the next thing in the sequence, and I only have to do 1 at a time.
I'm still just tripping out. Like, you have looked at sight pictures probably almost every day, like 100 times a day for the past year at least, and yet you can't see a sight picture in your head right now.
No, not even a little bit.
You cannot see a front sight, like what that looks like.
I don't know what people in my life look like when they're not in the room. Like I could describe their features to you, but I couldn't see them. They'd be like, they're 5'3", they're blonde, they've got a freckle on the nose, there's a mole on the left cheek or whatever. Like I can give you all of the information that I previously apprehended, but I don't access any of that by seeing them.
It's all just stored in a database. It's all just values.
Audiobooks have to be terrible for you.
Man, I love books. There's so much information in them.
So hold on,
and especially fiction, man. People were picking on me. They're like, "Oh, you wouldn't like fiction because it's all about description." It's like, no, fiction's all about conflict. And so it's all about conflict and resolution. And yeah,
is this how the conversation escalated to DMT?
yes. So then Mike Dixon said, "Well, I can show you the world. Come with me." And he didn't mean stand on the bow of the Titanic. He meant
Isn't that no? That's Aladdin.
Hallucinogens.
Aladdin,
yeah, a whole new world.
Yeah,
yeah,
I was thinking
hallucinogen.
I'm on top of the world.
So, have you ever hallucinated? You don't have to say how.
Extensively.
Jeff is now very fascinated in this conversation.
Oh, 100%.
So, I mean, I can hallucinate too, because again, I can dream with images, but I would never ever remember them as images. I can also remember photographs. Because a photograph is a thing I've seen. It's not a thing I produce based on information. Right? If I say the purple elephant is, jumping on the red trampoline, you produce a picture of a purple elephant jumping on a red trampoline.
It was
I
Horton.
will not produce that. What's that?
Said it was Horton. Horton Sees a Who.
It's a Horton? Oh, from Horton Sees a Who. Exactly. So you even picked a specific elephant. Great. I'm not going to do that. But if you take a picture of a purple elephant jumping on a red trampoline, I will later be able to recall details about that because I saw it.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about you saying like the red trampoline? The red trampoline gave me problems, and I had to. You know how like in Paint you use like the color fill, and you like you click on it. Like I kept imagining an elephant on a normal black trampoline, and I had to go with my Paint, my color fill, and go click the red button to turn all the black red.
Oh my god.
Were you able to just go straight red trampoline, even though you've never seen a red trampoline before, Jeff?
I didn't hear the red trampoline part. I just purple elephant.
Yeah, that's the whole ADHD
and then he was gone because he was already off looking at Horton, listening to Who's.
Exactly.
Oh wow! We have spent an hour talking about polygraphs and investigating deeper into Potato's mind, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know how many of you guys will enjoy this conversation as much as I have. But
the two guys with aphantasia will be excited. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, the other mind blind guy. He's on the internet."
Yes. I don't know if there's a big takeaway from this other than I'm still confused and I'm still in a little bit of disbelief. But I'll work on that.
However, if you need some shooting gear, go check out Shooter's Connection. They got everything you need to fund your shooting, to get those pacers, those targets, and dry fire targets. Get ready for the off season. We actually had a question about the off season, but get ready for the off season. It's getting cold. You're gonna need some dry fire stuff. So go over to Shooter's Connection, get what you need. They support this sport a lot, support a lot of matches. They support this podcast, and some would say that we help the sport out by bringing attention to it. Who knows? But they support us, so thank you to Shooters Connection. Great folks over there supporting the sport, and they're shooters themselves. So order you something from them. Use the link if you would. Let them know you came from here, and they'll get you fixed up real quick. No joke. They get their stuff shipped out quick. So thank you, Shooters Connection, for sponsoring the podcast. And we did have a question if y'all want to hit it real quick.
Quick. Let's do it.
Okay. It actually just came in. We need questions, so send us questions. Send us questions or join the Discord and send questions in there. Okay, it says, I don't know if you guys get full on winters like I do, but when the main outdoor season ends, does it impact you guys at all, or do you look forward to the break? Let's start with Potato.
it prevents me from shooting outside. When it's cold or there's snow on the base, I'm just not going to go. If it's 30s and raining, I'm not going to go. If there was a match I cared about and it was 30s and raining, I would go and I would shoot in it and that would be fine. But if I'm looking at a few months before I go to a match, I'm just not going to go. I don't really take an off season because I don't really have a season. But I go outside a lot less when it's cold.
So you never stop dry firing?
I change how I dry fire. And so like this year in the winter, I'm going to be dry firing single stack, trying to get good at that. And for me, and a few years ago, I dry fired a Glock, or I've dry fired production and then not shot any matches in production. So I'll do something different. So I don't feel like I'm just grinding forever. But I enjoy getting better. And so for me, dry fire is mostly about enjoying getting better. So I kind of don't want to stop doing that. I don't feel burned out from doing it. It's like running or lifting weights or anything else. It's just something I do.
Just about that grind.
No, I enjoy it.
Jeremy?
I do take an off season once nationals are over. This year, IPSC Nationals, once that's over, yeah, I'll put this stuff away. Honestly, because there's no I don't want to shoot winter. I don't want to shoot matches in the winter. Like I don't want like Florida Open seems like a cool match. They kind of do some crazy stuff there. It might be a cool match, but it's in the middle of winter for me. I don't want to go train when my hands are freezing cold and I can't really function. So like that's just not. I just don't want to train like that, and so I don't shoot matches that time of year. Which means if I'm not shooting matches, I'm not motivated to do much dry fire or anything like that. Certainly, I'm not going to be going outside a lot. So I take an off season basically because I'm not shooting matches then, so I'm not training for those matches. So I take an off season. It gives me it kind of just adds more time of the day or the week. I can go snow skiing with the kids, the family, or myself sometimes, and try to get some other stuff done. Plus the days are so short. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Potatoes, his days are already super short, but I mean, when it's dark before 6, when are you going to go shoot? Like it's either you just go during the middle of the day or you don't go. So.
Yeah. So historically I do take quite an off season, sometimes very long. And I usually regret that if I take a super long one, but I mean, I have taken like 6 months off and it kind of sucks coming back from, because usually with my personality, I'm not going to do nothing for 6 months. So if I'm not shooting, I'm going to pick up something else and I'm going to spend a lot of time doing that thing. And then it's going to come time for shooting and I'm going to be balls deep into doing something else. And I'm not going to want to set it down. So it's really not good for me to take that long off, but yeah, I do take an off season, even though we don't really get bad winters. It does get cold, like miserably cold and windy, but it doesn't get, it's like we don't get a lot of snow or anything. But yeah, generally I'll take off from like October to March or something like that. But this year, I don't know what it's going to look like because I'm supposed to crush potato in February. So we'll just have to see what happens. I don't know.
When do you reload for the season? Do you do that in winter? Or do you reload as you go?
Unfortunately, I reload as I go. Yeah.
What about you, Jeremy? Do you get out in front?
When I was shooting a lot, I used to do that. Yeah, I would try to get like 20,000 rounds in the off season stockpiled up. Not that in the past that wouldn't get me through a full season, but that would give me a stockpile that then the loading that I did during the season, I'd be ready to go. So I've got some components on hand and I've got brass. So this off season, I'll probably get some ammo loaded up. I'll have several thousand such that whenever I want to go shoot, I can just go shoot. That's kind of the worst when it's like, oh, hey, it's nice today. I've got an hour. I could go shoot. And it's like, you look down, I don't have any ammo. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to go shoot because by the time I load it and get out there, then you won't have time. So I try to always keep, like, I always load at least 1,000 at it. I never load less than 1,000. I always load at least 1,000 at a time, right? So I'm always loading somewhat of a stockpile. And yeah, I'll try to stockpile this winter. Jeff's right. It's a really short turnaround because we have IPSC Nationals in November this year, basically right before Thanksgiving, and then IPSC Nationals for 2024 is in April of next year. So there's really not this year's downtime. Actually, I'm looking to have more downtime actually after April of next year, even though I signed up for Area 1, which is in May. But yeah, I'll probably hit it hard early next season, and then I'll probably take kind of some time off where I don't do any dry fire and not a lot of shooting, kind of that early summer portion of next year.
Take June off and then get back to it in sometime in July in preparation for September.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. Next season's going to be interesting. The last time I did load a bunch of ammo, like off season, which it wasn't a ton. I do remember it being a little over 100 pounds of ammunition, but I did that, and then at some point during that 100 rounds, my die went bad, my sizing die. So I had a bunch of shit ammo that didn't like to chamber. So
you didn't do any sort of quality control checks while you were loading all that ammo?
I mean, I did. I didn't chamber drop them. I just did like a case gauge, and I was like, man, there's like a odd number of these that are not passing. Like it's like half of these are like not case gauging. And then I would go shoot a match, and I'd get like a couple of ones that wouldn't chamber, or the gun would lock up, and I just like couldn't get them out. And so I just like, it kind of built, like I had loaded them up, and I was like, man, these aren't Chechen. I'm having a failure every once in a while. And then I kind of finally realized, I was like, something is gone quite awry, because my gun won't run for shit now. So then I started looking into it and changed the die out. But yeah, that was my last experience with loading a bunch of ammo off season. Not to say that's necessarily the reason I don't load, but that was my last experience.
So
that always is danger.
What?
During the summer, I shoot normally every Wednesday night, and my family knows that, and it's like pizza night for the kids and whatnot. So when the weather's bad and there's no daylight, I just go and I load on Wednesday night, and then I load for a couple hours, and then I'm both slightly more available at home, and I still sort of protect that time. Because my other experience is, if I give up the shooting time, then something else does fill that time, and then at some point in the future I have to take it back, and that's stressful.
Oh yeah.
So I protect the time by loading.
Protect your time. That's a pretty solid piece of advice there. Pretty solid, I would say.
Yeah, it's hard if they're used to having you present. It's hard to all of a sudden become not present, right? Like the podcast now is very easy for me to tell my kids. Normally I put, help the kids with bath time and bedtime and all that, read books and all that. Mm-hmm. But Monday night, hey kids, I'm recording the podcast. Okay, bye daddy, give me a hug before you go do that, and that's it. Like there's no problem. If I tried to do that on another night, it would be a problem because they expect me to be reading them a book on the other nights, unless they're mad at me and then they want mommy to read the book. But
right.
So yeah, that's a fascinating insights there, Potato.
It is.
All right, guys, we appreciate you guys listening, and please comment or send questions, like and subscribe, everything, and be looking for that video to come out. It's going to be bussin', and I'm really excited for you guys to be able to see it. Thanks for coming on, Potato. We really appreciate it.
We do. Peace.